Thank you. Woo! The great poet Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote, "A few can touch the magic string, and noisy fame is proud to win them. Alas for those that never sing, but die with all their music in them." This poem is called The Voiceless, and it's actually in the text of Discover the Power Within You, the Eric Butterworth book, which I'm continuing to speak about this evening. The poem goes on to say, "Nay, grieve not for the dead alone, whose song has told their heart's sad story. Weep for the voiceless, who have known the cross without the crown of glory." There is great wisdom. The great wisdom of the ages is locked in the depths of your inner potential. Did you know that? Did you know all the riches of what is potential within you? The great key to your success, to your healing, lies in the untapped depths of your inner being, of the divine within you. Eric Butterworth wrote, "Not one person in a million is living up to the best within him." Can you imagine? Imagine what a world would look like if everyone was living up to their full potential, or even half the people, or even a quarter of the people. So many times in my life, I've been told that I have great potential. Has anybody told you that before? You have great potential. I mean, it's a great compliment to have, right? But I don't want to be a person in potential anymore. I want to live fully. I want to not die with all the music in me. And so that was my motivation to sing for you all today, because I still have music in me, and I want to thank those of you who took the time to reach out to me this week after hearing my talk last week and encouraging me to sing, and to the wonderfully wise Dr. Randall Brailsford, who reminded me that our talents are part of our authentic nature, and that no matter how we develop them to get our needs met, that they're part of who we are authentically, and it's important for us to share them. So I sang today to encourage you to share your talents, even if you're like me and you haven't done it in a while. There's a deep calling within each of us. Don't you sense it? That there's a life force energy within you that's wanting to express more and in greater ways. That's our divine power. And sometimes we can render ourselves voiceless. Have you ever done that? I've silenced myself, like those people who are the subject of that poem. They have borne their cross, but they haven't seen their glory. We may have had a crucifixion, but we've got to hang in there for the resurrection. And sometimes we have outer crucifixions, but a lot of times it's a crucifixion in our own minds. Anyone else here a fellow perfectionist? Any perfectionists out there? Am I the only one? I've struggled with perfectionism my whole life. I was looking up online these prayers for, it was actually Myers-Briggs type prayers. My Myers-Briggs type is INFJ. And the prayer for INFJ says, "Lord, help me not be a perfectionist." Did I spell that right? So for those of you who don't know about perfectionism, when you're a perfectionist, you don't actually think you're perfect. You think that you're never perfect. You're always striving for perfectionism. So I just always struggled with not enoughness, and I had justification for it because I was an artist. Okay, as an artist, I spent many years auditioning for shows, and people who are performers subject themselves to a really unnatural amount of rejection and criticism. I mean, you guys know, musicians, we all know that actors spend more time looking for the next gig than actually on the gig. And that was my life for many years. And audition coaches tell you that when you're auditioning, that you have to remember that it's not always about you, that they may be looking for someone who looks a certain way, or it might be that they hire somebody that they know, or it might be that you just look like their ex-girlfriend, so it's a no. But after you've been auditioning for days and weeks and months, and you're like not booking anything, you start to think, well, maybe it is me. Maybe it is me, which leads to, well, maybe I'm good, but maybe I'm just not good enough. There are many well-known rejection stories amongst famous actors, and there's one that particularly touched my heart that I want to share with you tonight. And it's about this actor, and through some difficulties in his mother's labor when he was born, the doctor accidentally severed a nerve in his face, and he suffered from paralysis in his face that caused him to have a slightly slurred speech. He attended school in Philadelphia, where he first started acting, and he left college early to go to New York City to pursue his dream of his acting career. And he auditioned for almost every casting director in the city, and he wasn't getting anywhere. He only booked some very small minor roles, like background work, little bit parts. But during this time, he went to the library. And if you've ever been to the New York public libraries, they're amazing and also free and air conditioned, so a great place for actors. And he went there and he began reading the classics. He read such wonderful classic literature by authors like Leo Tolstoy and Edgar Allan Poe, and this informed him in his writing, and so he got into writing more, and it gave him a bit of an edge in his writing because his knowledge of literature had influenced what he was working on. And he decided that he wasn't going to take any other jobs besides acting. Try doing that as an actor in New York. It didn't last him very long. He ran out of money pretty quickly, and he was evicted from his apartment. One story said that he slept for 3 weeks in the New York Port Authority bus terminal. If you've ever been there, you know what that's like. Before he saw a casting notice for a softcore porn film. Can you say that in church? In his words, he said, "It was either do that or rob someone because I was at the end, the very end of my rope." It was said that he received $200 for acting in this film. But one day, he was watching a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. And Ali was literally destroying Wepner, but Wepner kept getting back up and coming back and trying to win, even though he really had no chance against Ali. And so this inspired this author to begin writing based on this story of this fighter. And he wrote for 3 days, for 20 straight hours. And after this time, he had completed an entire screenplay. And he began to sell this screenplay to many, many producers, and he kept getting rejected and rejected and rejected. And he was so poor at this point, this is what really got to me, was that he decided to sell his best friend, his dog. And so he went to the local liquor store and he sold his dog for $50, his best friend, and he was devastated to have to do this. But he kept pursuing getting someone to produce his film. And finally somebody loved it and they agreed to produce it. And he was going to sell them the film on the terms that he got to play the lead role. And they declined. They told him that he was a writer, he wasn't an actor, and he said he disagreed. He declined their offer of $100,000 despite the fact that he was penniless. A couple of weeks later, they called back with an even higher offer, and still he insisted to play the lead, and they declined again. And the offer kept rising with the conditions that he would sell them the film and he wouldn't be in it. And they had Robert Redford and Burt Reynolds in mind, not this unknown writer guy. The offer got up to $350,000, $400,000, but he still declined. He was so sure that he was the actor for this film. Eventually, they decided they would drop the offer to $25,000, and he could play the role, because they didn't want to take a chance on an unknown actor. And so he said yes, and he did it. You know what the first thing he did with the money when he got his $25,000? He went back to the liquor store and got his dog back. I thought that was really cool. He had to wait around 3 days for the guy who bought the dog to walk by. He was hoping the guy would walk by. Finally, he walked by, and so he offered him $150, 3 times what he paid for it, and the guy declined. And he kept offering him more and more, and the guy kept declining. And finally, he ended up having to give the guy $15,000, plus the dog and him had to be in the film together. Do we all know who the actor is? Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. Isn't that a great story? And the movie was Rocky. Of course, we all know what happened with the movie Rocky. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1976. And at the award ceremony, he read out all the rejection slips from all those who said his film would be sappy, predictable, and a film that no one would want to watch. Can you imagine Rocky? Now, we know Sylvester Stallone is one of the great action heroes of all film history. He never let failure stop him from pursuing his dream, even when he had nothing and no reason to value himself. He trusted in that power within him, and he created the life he imagined, really from nothing. In Discover the Power Within You, Eric Butterworth says, when we measure man from the viewpoint of the human, we come up with a table of limitations. When we measure him from the criterion of the divinity of man, we must conclude with Jesus that all things are possible. So how are you measuring yourself? Are you measuring yourself from a list of your limitations? Or do you see yourself in terms of what you can be, like Sylvester Stallone did? Eric Butterworth says that the question to ask yourself is, has anyone fulfilled your desire, your dream? Has anyone done it? Well, if somebody's done it, then what God has done, God can do. And God can do it in and through you. He also says, ask yourself, could Jesus have done this? And if the answer seems to be yes, then to remember that Jesus said, all that I have done, you can do and more. Now, it can be a big stretch for yourself to see yourself as what you can be rather than what you have been. But it's exactly that kind of thinking that gets you moving forward spiritually into a realization of the Christ mind in you. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, tells a story of when Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Then he asked, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Butterworth tells us that the point Jesus is making here is that no matter who we're appraising, that we really can't know someone by their background or by analyzing their character, that the only correct way to evaluate someone is to evaluate them by what they can be, by their potential. Jesus was saying to Peter that Peter didn't arrive at his conclusion that he was the Son of God by assessing Jesus' personality or his appearance or anything about where he was from, anything that he could have known from sense consciousness. Peter had an inner revelation of Jesus' divinity. He saw the Christ not by sight, but by insight, as Butterworth puts it. Butterworth led me to see the story, a whole new interpretation of the story from the way that I had been raised in my understanding in Catholicism. I'd always thought that the purpose of this story was to prove Jesus' divinity. However, Butterworth explains that when we look closely at the story, we can see that it's Peter and not Jesus who's being commended. Jesus already proved his divine capacities by opening his heart to people, by calling forth the divine within them and their innate greatness. You know the phrase, "you spot it, you got it"? That's what we're talking about here. This is exactly what Jesus was pointing out in Peter. Peter saw Jesus' divinity, And in seeing that, it revealed his own divinity. And the story goes on in Matthew to say that Jesus was so delighted at Peter's spiritual insight that he went on and said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth you will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Butterworth says that it's unfortunate that there's been some confusion around this Bible passage that led to a particular development in the Christian church. The interpretation that the church had always given this saying, that I understood it to be, is, "Peter, I'm so proud of you that I'm going to build my ecclesiastical organization upon you." And this was taken so literally that St. Peter's Basilica in Rome is said to be built on the buried bones of Peter. But we've read into the story this meaning that we've given to the word church since that time. That word church was not associated with a building back then. That's not how they used that word church. The word church meant called out ones. Jesus was always speaking on the metaphysical level, and so he was talking about Peter showing up, expressing his faith, expressing his spiritual consciousness. We need to also remember that up until this story, his name was Simon, that Peter was a nickname that had been given to him after this incident when Jesus said it. The very first time that Simon was called Peter was when Jesus said, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." And it wasn't that Jesus was naming him, but he was praising a quality that Simon showed. The original Greek word that would have been in Scripture is Petros, and Petros is a term similar to our word faith. It means rock-like steadfastness. So that was the quality that Jesus was seeing in Simon Peter. But if you look at the Gospels and how Simon showed up in different ways, he was anything but rock-like in character, okay? Butterworth says that he was the most impetuous and unstable of all the disciples, and that actually he thinks Jesus was probably the most worried about him of all of them. Okay, now remember, this was the guy who, when Jesus was headed towards crucifixion, that he denied him 3 times that he knew him. Okay, he was not the most steady guy. But in this flash of insight into Jesus' divinity, Peter gave evidence of an inner potential, and Jesus caught hold of that. He was delighted when he said, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." He was giving him, I love Eric Butterworth says that he gave him a prayer treatment to build up his consciousness of faith that he expressed. That was an affirmation that he was saying. Rather than that he'd already been that way, he was calling it forth from within him. And it took time. And as we go forward in the Gospels, we look into the Acts of the Apostles, we can see that Peter did live up to his potential, and even more so. He did demonstrate what Jesus claimed for him. Jesus didn't define Peter by his failures, but by his potential. And so remember that you're not your failures, you're not your setbacks. You are the whole performance, and the best is yet to be. Butterworth says that when you consider a person's life, it's like asking this question: what is a dandelion? Well, a dandelion is a tiny seed. A dandelion is a small green shoot coming out of the ground. It's like a miniature golden sunflower. It's a puffball that disintegrates into a shower of tiny silver jewels with a gust of the wind. But what is a dandelion? Well, it's the whole performance, all of it. What are you? You're the whole performance, and you are what you can be. When I was auditioning as an actor, I had no idea that what I was doing then was going to bring me to the place that I am here today, speaking to you tonight. I came very close to my dream of being a Broadway actor, and in 2008, I was called back for a Broadway show, and I went to the callback, and at the callback, they told me that I was going to be on the list for a replacement cast. And so I was excited, and I went to see the show with David, and man, I was disappointed when I saw the show, and I had this sense in me, this isn't it. This isn't it. I wasn't brought to this place to just continue to speak other people's words and to play characters. I wanted to speak my own words and share my own message, but I didn't know what that would look like. So I kept asking, I listened to Spirit, and I got more and more involved at my church, Unity of New York. And 9 months from that callback, I heard my call to ministry. And so we never know, that was what, nine years ago, and I'm here today. We never know what Spirit is preparing us for. We never know what our potential is, and who knows what 9 years from now will bring. I hope that in our time together these past few weeks that you have gotten a glimpse into the amazing divine potential within you, and that you're interested in learning more. Come to my class. You are welcome. It starts after we go to convention and then after summer camp. So in a few weeks, we'll be starting up class, and it's Wednesday morning class. I hope that you'll join me. Eric Butterworth says that when life demands of you, who do you think you are, that you speak a word of truth? And he offers a series of affirmations. So I invite you to affirm these with me. I'm a spiritual being.
I'm a spiritual being.
I am whole and free.
I am whole and free.
I'm confident and capable.
I'm confident and capable.
I am the master of my life.
I am the master of my life.
You are Petros. You are the rock of faith that is bringing forth that Christ consciousness, that divine nature within you. So go forth and be the light of the world. And so it is.